Hello. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, good morning for me. Good afternoon for our guest and probably many out there in our audience. It's Sasha here from the Freebird Project. Hi. And today we are going to have an amazing session with Snowe Saxman. She's going to talk with us about mastering our money mindset. It's actually pretty awesome because I really want to know about this topic. And I know a lot of people who are really interested in it as well, especially as small business owners, entrepreneurs, and even people who are looking to escape their situations or improve their situations. So it's such a vital topic. Now, as most of you already know, but of course I'm going to repeat myself, this is all sponsored by the Freebird Project, and it's the Free to Fly conference and fashion show. So the whole idea behind it is that we are trying to generate more interest towards our organization, which does support domestic abuse survivors and soon-to-be survivors. And of course, it all ties into our amazing fashion pieces, which I will talk about a little bit more at the end. I just like to show it off because I'm super comfy. But nonetheless, what we'll do is we'll get rolling here. Now, always remember, guys, I am here on Twitter. I'm also watching our YouTube live, so please chat with me. Ask no questions. I know she's going to love it, and I always love it. And I will tweet and converse with you guys as we go along. So I'm actually going to turn the floor over to Snowe. And Snowe, why don't you start by telling our audience a little bit about you, what you do, and what you're here to talk to us about?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. So yes, I am Snowe Saxman, and I am a success, wealth, and women's expert. And what I do is I help women who struggle with money uncover hidden success blocks and then heal their relationship with the past, and then teach them how to master money so they can live the life that God intended, emotionally, spiritually, and financially free. So that's what I do. And my passion is helping women build a smart and soulful six-figure business where they can have it all without giving up what's important to them, like their family or their children.
Wow, that's and then you know what? That's exactly what a lot of people really truly need. Now, how long have you been doing this?
This particular redevelopment of my brand for about 3 years now. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 plus years, and mostly what I teach is from my own journey, which I can share a little bit about too as well. I'll give you the brief synopsis, and then it ties into the mastering the money mindset because it's what I had to do, and we can dig deeper into that area too. But I teach a lot from my story because I had to master my own money mindset, and so I've actually had to walk through those pieces. So I've been an entrepreneur for 17 plus years. By the time I was 25, I was a millionaire. And then by the time I was 35, I was bankrupt and living on food stamps. And it was all because of my negative and limiting fears and thoughts around money. That's what drove me into bankruptcy. And so about 3 to 4 years ago, I began redeveloping myself and stepping into, my soul passion, which is empowering women to have it all, more money, more choices, and more time with their family. So I've been doing it for about 3 or 4 years.
Wow, that's really fantastic, and it's something I would take it you enjoy because you're moving more towards it. But you said it really all ties into your story. So I'd love to hear about the progression, how the story became the reality.
Yes, of course. I love sharing my story. So I went to school and became an accountant. I have a degree in accounting, and when I was in college, I got married. I had a baby and I got divorced all in college. And my starter husband, the reason that I was excited to do this project with you is because he was extremely abusive. So I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and it's a cause that I often donate for, fight for, do fundraisers for. So I graduated college, a single mom, no child support, had this accounting degree. My starter husband just took off. I literally haven't seen him since, thank God. And so I was ready for a fresh start. So I moved to Orlando, Florida. I got my first job at Walt Disney World as an entry-level accountant. It was amazing. I did like the American dream, right? I went to college. I did what I was supposed to do. I got this job. My daughter went to preschool on Disney property. And so it was just like, wow, this is it. I've started my life. It's going to be amazing. And within a few months, I realized that working for someone else was just not for me. I wanted to be able to control my time, and I knew I would never do that working for someone else. And then at 9 months, I got my first pay raise, and it was $1 an hour. And literally my whole life flashed before my eyes. And I thought, I can't do this for 40 some years. Like, this is crazy. There has to be a better way. And so I quit. I went back to graduate school to get my master's in business, and I started my first business 17 plus years ago, doing small business accounting, tax planning, helping them set up their systems and everything they need to get started. And that's where I met my current amazing husband, Paul. He was actually one of my first clients. We had a whirlwind romance, and we ended up starting a construction and real estate company. This was before the economy, crashed. Company, and between his gifts and mine, we just blend so well together that by the time I was 25, we had this multi-million-dollar construction and real estate company. It was amazing, but there was still something kind of missing for me. I have this business gift, this numbers gift, but it's very masculine. And obviously I'm girly girl, I'm feminine. And so I ended up buying a salon because I wanted something for me. And I can see it now, but back then I didn't realize there was this underlying desire to help women and empower women. And so it came through as this, let me buy this salon. I think it's a really great idea. I love it. And that was a horrible failure. And then I turned around and bought a ladies fitness franchise. Same concept. I thought, great, I can help women again. So this theme is like, keeps coming up. And so I'm in this gym, and now it's my second failing retail business. The economy is starting to crash. And we just basically got sucked into, the economy crashing. There's nothing we can do. There obviously was some very realistic things happening that were out of our control, but we just allowed ourselves to get pulled into this lack mentality. And we really just stopped showing up for ourselves. And we fell into this mindset that we are waiting on God to do something. And so by this point, the economy is almost completely crashed. We've literally had to sell everything. I mean, everything. We lost $1 million house, all of our vehicles, like crystal, china. I mean, literally, you name it. We literally sold it all. We're bankrupt, had to file bankruptcy, living on food stamps. And by this point, I have developed a relationship with God. So I'm, I think I'm more spiritual. I think I'm doing all the right things. And one day I just cried out to God, and I just threw myself on the ground and I said, I don't know what you're waiting on to bless me, but I'm doing everything you've told me. Why am I still bankrupt and living on food stamps? Like, I know this isn't what you want for people. And what are you waiting on to bless me? And in this audible voice, God said, Snow, you are not waiting on me. I am waiting on you. And I was literally shocked that I was the problem, because I thought I had a money problem. And he's like, no, you don't have a money problem. And so this is when I began my journey of renewing my mind, mastering the way I thought about money, realizing that every way that I thought was negative and fear-based, and even though I was saying I trusted and believed, my actions were actually proving the opposite. And I began my journey of working with my first coaches, and I just fell so in love with it. And I understood, based on my traumatic past, how everyone is basically affected in some way, emotionally and mentally, throughout life. And so I was just so excited to bring this new information to the world that I became a master neuroscience coach, which is coaching based on the science of the brain. And so that's when I began to develop my first programs to not only help people with their mindset, but also help them with money. Obviously, I have a strong financial background. So not only can I help people renew their minds, master the way they think about money, I can then also give people the tools they need to create it, to manage it, and to multiply it. So that's how I got to where I am.
Wow. That's an amazing story, and I hope you know how much I appreciate that you shared that with us. First, I mean, congratulations on being a survivor. You're among good company with our viewing audience and most of our Freebird panel. That being said, I mean, it's just so amazing that you had to go through all of those things to be able to get to that point. I can imagine that would have been quite hard for you. Now, of course, all of this is going to lead me to, I mean, you clearly did the trial by fire, so you've got to have a lot in your back pocket. So how does this tie into your money mastery course?
I teach, obviously from my experience, and also, I have studied the brain for many, many years now and studied tons of psychology. Not only am I a survivor of domestic abuse, but I'm also a survivor of sexual abuse. That I was sexually abused from the time I was a toddler until I was a teenager. And so I had many, many, many years of abuse, emotional, physical, sexual. And so I had been studying psychology and studying alternative forms of therapy for many, many years. And then, of course, getting into master neuroscience coaching. And so obviously I teach a lot from what I know actually works to change, your emotions, to change the way you're thinking, so you can change the results that you see in your life. So my program is actually based on literally what I went through. And the first thing it always starts with, and it's true with any change you want to make, is just becoming aware. Awareness is the key. What's happening to us so often, especially when we go through traumatic things, and even if they're not as traumatic as what I've been through, or maybe some of you listening, anything that shifts the way you think about something causes you to think and therefore believe and therefore act differently in your life until you consciously make the decision to start thinking something differently. And so what I teach is, conditioning your mind every single day and not just going with every thought that pops into your mind, especially when they're limiting. We want to shift what we're thinking and stop ourselves from just going on that automatic pilot, because the subconscious brain literally is on an autopilot. Like, you're thinking anywhere from 65,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day. And most of them, obviously, you're not aware of because you can't possibly fathom thinking that many thoughts. So obviously you're not really aware of what's really going on. And so that's the tape that's playing constantly. So we have to interrupt the tape. We have to stop, shift, and become aware. So for me, when I had that defining moment and cried out to God, he said, you're the problem. And I'm thinking, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like, how can I be the problem? And that was when I began to become aware of what I was thinking around money. And so for me, money was my immediate need and immediate problem that I had. And so I began looking at the way I was thinking about money. So when money would come in, I started thinking, what are my thoughts right now? When I would have to pay a bill, what are my thoughts? And that's when I began to see that they were all negative. Like, literally, they were all negative and fear-based and lack. And so I thought, oh my gosh, like, these are my predominant thoughts, and I was not even aware of them. So the first thing is awareness, just coming into awareness of what you're really thinking. Stop that autopilot and begin consciously thinking so you can create better results in your life.
I have to, awareness piece, absolutely more than anything. And I mean, really, in knowing from your background, and I mean, again, you're definitely working with some kindred spirits, but you do learn that it's a process, right? And awareness is always that first step. It's also what they teach when you're recovering from an abuse situation or that sort of thing, is you need to be aware of what you're experiencing first before you can start to correct the behavior. So I really think it's great that that's where you start. Now, for our viewing audience, what would you say is the key to finding that awareness?
Is to start, what I say, thinking about what you're thinking about. So that's where the awareness piece comes in. And so, like, when someone goes through my program, in the beginning, I'm basically sending them these worksheets and questions, and I'm making them start to acknowledge where they are financially. What are they not looking at? What are they avoiding? What's their financial house look like? Because most of the time people can't even tell me how much money they're making or what other bills are due each month. Like, they don't have a budget. They don't know my bills are $3,232 every single month. Like, they have no idea. And so it's all about, coming into the awareness and starting to actually map out where you currently are, your income, your expenses, all of those things. And then start being able to see the places, the gaps that you need, to fix. So it starts with that awareness. And then in my program, we're literally starting to write everything out so we can become totally aware, so then we can start making the changes. And then seeing, where they're feeling the biggest emotional blocks. So the way that I help people discover the hidden success blocks is seeing where the biggest gaps are, where they're experiencing, either they're avoiding it the most, it's causing the most amount of fear, the most amount of frustration, the most amount of pain. Whatever those physical symptoms are for them is after they map out their, house, basically, is identifying the biggest gaps, the biggest biggest things of frustration. And then those are the places that we start to be able to remove emotional blocks or deal with unresolved emotions and feelings, or move past any trauma, or relearn behavior, because so much of what keeps people stuck as well is they learned something bad. They learned something from a parent that was bad with money, or, you know, irresponsible with money, or never had money. And so we have to relearn certain behaviors as well. So that's kind of the next stage. And then learning how to condition our mind and be, you know, focused on thinking about what we're thinking about until the brain can actually reprogram, because it literally takes people years to get to the current programming. And so it takes, like science is saying, it takes like as much as 10,000 repetitions to make something permanent. Like people used to say, oh, 30 days to create a new habit. And that's so not true. You see results in the first 30 days, but it's not permanent in the brain. The neural pathways are not strong enough to basically like re-solidify over the old existing programming until at least 6 months, which is usually about 10,000 repetitions. And so the beginning is just that awareness, and then finding those hidden success blocks, identifying them, you know, learning how to move past them, and then beginning a daily conditioning routine of the mind that will create new neural pathways or new patterns. And then after that, now someone has become aware enough that they can see and feel themselves shifting back into an old pattern, or they catch themselves before something. So that's basically the way my program is designed, to help someone really learn how to master it and then be in control of what they're thinking from that point on.
And that's a fantastic program, and I imagine a lot of our viewing audience would want to do the same. Now, you mentioned the process and how to get going. What are some of the ways that you keep yourself motivated to make this change? Because I know that, especially when it comes to things like financial health, it can be very stressful. I mean, money is one of those things that causes divorce. So how do you keep yourself motivated and wanting to constantly move forward to that financial freedom?
Right. Well, the truth is you have to be ready for change. Like, you know, that's the bottom truth. Like the pain of remaining the same has to be greater than the pain it's going to take to change, because it's not going to all be easy. People have to deal with junk deep inside their heart and soul. They have to deal with emotions that they've shoved down, feelings that they haven't processed, you know, people that they need to forgive, themselves that they need to forgive. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be dealt with. And so you have to be ready to deal with that kind of stuff. So you have to be ready for change. So it's nothing other than the desire that I cannot stay here any longer. Like for me, I had the defining moment. It was enough was enough. And so for me and my belief, yeah, I knew that God had the answers for me, and I thought I was waiting on him. And so I cried out to him. You know, maybe you don't have a relationship with God, but you're just tired of it. So it determines where you are. Like, I'm just done. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's what motivates you to create the change and do the work that it takes to create the change.
Great. And it's good that you point out that it does take a lot of work and it does take a commitment. I mean, most things in life take at least some oomph to get you where you need to go. But I really do feel that financial health and stability is important. Now, from your experiences, other than just your business and financial aspects, so that more business role, what do you think that not having your money under control, what do you think effect that had on your life?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously it affects every area of our life. You know, we couldn't even feed our kids, you know, much less do anything else. And especially the way the brain is, and when you're not in a place that I am now, where I'm consciously, you know, conditioning my mind and aware of everything I'm thinking, and I can stop those thoughts faster now. When you're in that place, your brain just gets into self-sabotage so much faster. And so this is why people downward spiral so fast. And so it literally has an effect, you know, on your entire life, your emotions, your physical health, you know, obviously what's going on around you. You know, we lost everything and had to sell literally every single thing of value, and things never had me. But when you have to sell off every single thing that you own just to survive, that takes a toll on you. And so, you know, it took a tremendous toll. And that's why I got to the point where I'd had enough. And I knew this wasn't, you know, what God intended for any person, whether you believe in him or not. That's not the way that we should be living our lives. But I also knew that, you know, change was possible, because, and I also knew something had to be wrong, because I had already built this multi-million-dollar company. And so there was obviously something missing. So I was like, I just didn't think it was going to be me. I didn't think I was going to be the problem, but it does affect every area of your life for sure.
Fair enough. And you know what? Of course, it would have to affect almost every area of your life. I mean, that's the the society that we live in. It's very monetarily driven. But I can imagine that there's also a lot of good and great things that you can achieve by doing so. So for the audience out there that may be listening and considering, am I going to be able to do this? Is this something I want to really invest in? What are some of the benefits that really come from having that control?
Well, having that control is what the first steps to financial freedom. And it's not about any specific amount of money that brings freedom. It's the freedom from not, being a slave to money or a slave to your negative thoughts. It's the freedom that comes with, having peace, knowing that you can, do what you're supposed to do here, that if you have a desire, a passion in your heart, that you can make it happen and you don't have to give up anything that's important to you. You can have it all. You can be if you're a woman, you can be the mother, you can be a wife, you can be a businesswoman, and you don't have to sacrifice anything. And when you're not in that place of financial freedom, all you're thinking about and all you're focused on is the lack of money and resources, and it affects, like we said, every area of your life. I wasn't as good of a mother. I wasn't as good of a wife. I wasn't as good of a friend. I was all sucked into, pitiful me instead of being powerful. And so that caused, even more problems. And that's not a place of freedom. And so it's not just about like money and like having things. It's just learning how to master it. Like I always say, money is a resource. It's a tool. It's not that we want to create more of it just so we can have more of it. But we also shouldn't be afraid of it. Like it's a resource available to everyone. Everyone gets the same access to it. And especially in our country, we kind of have this, we view money differently because of the way our country is. But the truth is it's there for everyone. And if you want to create something, the actual money, the resources are there for you. So you can do whatever it is your heart's desire is. And that's where, true freedom comes in. And that's why it's so important to learn how to master it. So it's no longer mastering you and making you a slave to it, either through debt or avoidance or just not having the finances you want to live the life that you want.
All right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. While I was sitting here, it was kind of leading me into more thoughts. And I mean, really what we're doing this for is other survivors and people who want to become survivors. Now, I kind of want to tie it in together a little bit because what about those people sitting at home? Maybe they're in a situation where they're not the ones in control of their money. They're not the ones who are currently in a position to be able to do so. I was in that position at one point where, unfortunately, I was the person who didn't have control over anything. How would someone like that be able to establish a financial identity?
Yeah, great question. I was there too. When I was, in college and married to my first husband, who was extremely abusive. He wouldn't let me have a job. We only had one car that he had gone all the time. I didn't have any resources, and this was like 20 years ago, and we lived in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't even like there was, technology, internet. Like the internet wasn't around yet, and so I was very, very limited. And I was just trying to like save a little bit of money here and there because I wanted to get out, but I couldn't. And so obviously today we have a lot more resources available with the internet and cell phones the way they are. There are so many resources for women. If like you're actually in a domestic abuse situation right now and you have no money, there are so many resources, shelters and people that can get you out immediately. And that's what I would say is the number one priority. Is just get out, grab what you can and get out, because the sooner you get out of that situation, then you can begin the steps to healing and begin your entire journey, not just the financial one. But it's going to be very difficult to improve your money mindset if you're in a domestic violence situation or any type of abuse situation, because it's all tied together. Emotions, spiritually, and finances, it's all tied together. That's why my mission is empowering women to live emotionally, spiritually, and financially free, because until you grow yourself emotionally and spiritually, the finances aren't going to come. And so we've got to get you out of the situation you're in now. And there really are so many resources available for you to be able to get out. Shelters all around, people that will help you. And so that honestly is the first step. And then all of the shelters, because like I work with one locally here where we are, they have their program in place to get these women, looking for a job or helping with their business or whatever. So they have those first steps, to take when you're just getting out of that situation. So that's what I would suggest.
And you know what, that's fantastic. So, I mean, building off of that and that idea, would you then say that handling your financial health has to come after maybe handling some other self-care pieces like your safety and your self-love.
Yes, yes. Safety is definitely first. And that's all tied together. You know, there's the psychology of the basic human needs that people have. And unless you feel safe, you're not going to be able to do the other things that we have to in life. That's why safety is the most important thing. So you've got to get out of the situation just so you can think clearly, because it's a survival mechanism. You know, it's a survival mode that you're in if you're not safe. If you're constantly afraid of what's going to happen next, or you're not feeling safe, then it's going to be really difficult to see any improvement in any other area of your life. So we definitely need to get you feeling safe.
Great advice, and I definitely second that. And just further to Snow's point here, guys, there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of resources out there, and I absolutely agree. The first step needs to be getting out, but reach out for help. I mean, that's what we're all here for. You can reach out to any one of us Freebirds, myself included. We actually do help with these programs. That's part of what we do. So we can connect you with resources. We can help connect you with other groups of people going through the same thing. And the whole idea being is that then we can guide you to wonderful people like Snow who can help you reestablish that financial identity. So far, absolutely fantastic, Snow. Now, what other programs and things do you generally like to do? I mean, we've kind of looked at the Mastering the Money Mindset overview, but what kind of things do you actually do to create that?
You mean like if someone were to do the program? Is that what you mean? Or
yeah, I mean, you kind of broke down into some of the steps, but I'm thinking for some of our viewer audience who's looking, this is going to be a right fit for me? I mean, what does that process really entail? How in depth does it go? You said it can take years.
Yeah. So the program, the way it's designed is to basically bring them into awareness, like I said, so they can just start that process of consciously thinking, and then move past whatever unresolved emotions or trauma or learned behavior that they have, and then give them the tools that they need to continue on the journey themselves. Because yes, it can take years, because it took years to get there, but you can create permanent change in 3 to 6 months. So I have a couple different programs in the way that I work with people. I have a do-it-yourself version. And so each week they get an exercise, and then they get a training, and that goes on for 4 weeks. And so by the end of the 4 weeks, they've kind of identified all the things they need to work on. They have the tools, the understanding, where they've been able to learn how the brain works, how emotions work, how it affects your body, and then all the tools they need to be able to start, a better financial journey for themselves. And then I also have a private one where we do the same thing, except I do private breakthrough sessions with someone each week for 7 weeks. And by the end of the 7 weeks in the private program, people have identified, and we've moved past any blocks, any unresolved emotions, and then they just have the tools that they need to continue on the journey. And I am working on something right now that's going to be like a 6-month kind of email, like everyday email, because it does require a daily commitment of something. So I was actually working on developing something that would give someone that, every day, here's an email, to remind you of this, just to kind of keep it in your mind, because it does take that long to make it permanent, for sure. But you do get all the tools to do it. So my goal is, because I'm trying to keep the program more affordable as well, because obviously most people that do it, they have money problems. So I was trying to create a program that, would obviously give them the tools they need to identify this stuff, but not make it cost $5,000, because, if you go into anyone's program for 6 months or a year, you're going to be spending, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I've been trying to create something that will really meet people where they are. So it's, at least easy, it's not cheap, it's not $97 or anything, but it's only a few $100s, which I did the same thing. The first program I did was $300 and some dollars, and it was a lot of money for me then. I had to break it up into payments, and so I was trying to do the same thing for people that would come to me, keep something that was a little bit affordable to get those first steps of changes, and then you can turn around and maybe do the private program or do something bigger, because you've made some forward progress, and you just kind of keep on the journey to continue, and then you could do something longer, with me as well. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
You know what? That's great. And it's good that you have that consciousness of the struggles that people have. Now, what kind of people do you generally work with? I mean, obviously, I would assume that almost anybody, but what's your ideal client?
My ideal client is a woman entrepreneur, someone that has their own business and they're just struggling to make money. They're stuck. They could be stuck making money. Like I had clients who are stuck at 6 figures before, so stuck is stuck. Doesn't matter how much money you're making, stuck is stuck. But it's just someone who is stuck, struggling with money, who usually has something from the past that they haven't dealt with. It might not always be money related because the way the brain works is sometimes it shows up as a money problem, but it could actually be some other trauma that's affecting you, with your finances. But there's usually something in their past, a trauma or, a divorce, a breakup, death, anything like that, and especially things from their childhood. So most of the women who come to me, there's something in the past that they have to deal with and let go of. And so they're a woman entrepreneur and someone that needs to deal with something in the past, and they're struggling with money currently.
Great. So ladies, anybody out there who fits that profile, it might even be me, please, we'll give you some more information near the end as to how to contact Snow. But now you know that's really where her specialty is, and I love working to people's specialties. Now, so I've kind of been sitting here mulling on something that you said, because I realized I don't actually have a solid understanding. You said you were a master neuroscience coach,
Yes.
and that you coach using information on the brain. So I'm sorry, I find this absolutely fascinating, and I was hoping you would tell me a little bit more about what that looks like.
Sure. So the training program that I went through to become a coach, it's all based on like the exact science of the brain. So understanding what happens, when we think, how our thoughts are, formed, how beliefs happen, understanding the process of what the brain actually does in a situation, how it processes information. So for example, your brain is constantly processing information like nonstop. Even while you're sleeping, it's still processing. It literally is the most complex supercomputer that's ever existed. They'll never be able to create something that's as powerful as the brain. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's something like millions and millions of pieces of information it's processing every single day. Again, 60 to 80,000 thoughts. You're obviously not aware of most of those thoughts. We're probably aware of like 1,000 thoughts a day, basically, we're only aware of. And your brain is processing information through all 5 senses, through sight, through sound, through touch, through taste, through smell. So it's processing information through all 5 senses. And what its job is to give you an answer based on what it perceives and what is based on your past. So when you're born, you only have a subconscious brain. You don't have the conscious brain, which is where you're thinking, conscious thoughts. When you're about 2, the conscious brain starts to form. And this is why they call it terrible 2s. It's not that 2-year-olds are terrible. They're just learning how to think for themselves. And so when you tell them to do something and they don't want to, they're like, no, because they're like, they can now think and speak for themselves. So it's not that they're terrible. It's just this conscious brain is now forming. And so the conscious brain forms between the ages of 2 and 5. And this is like the most crucial time of development in our lives. Everything that we're taught, indirectly or directly, it's literally programming us from age 2 to 5. And then from age 5 until 25, the rest of the brain development happens. As we get through each stage, we're a little more aware, we can do more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what's happening in those first 25 years is that you are literally being programmed, like literally, to think a certain way, to believe a certain way. You hit that development, that the brain will stop. And once you've hit that development, now the brain is basing everything that you see and everything that comes into your path based on what already happened to you. So you're in a situation, the brain is literally processing all this information through all of your 5 senses. And it's going, hey, this is like this event that happened, whatever many years ago. So we're going to call this fear or love or anger or happiness or sadness. And the brain doesn't need something to be 100% similar to link the 2. So it only needs something to be 15% similar. So you could have fear in your finances, but it might not be a financial situation that caused you fear before. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be a divorce, but the brain has linked it and now labeled it. And so once it labels it, it sends literally a chemical into your body based on the emotion that it's labeling it as. And then once the chemical goes through your body, it creates a physical response. So if you think about like watching a TV show that's not real, and all of a sudden you laugh because you think it's something funny. Well, the brain has thought it's something based on something funny from before. And so you see it, the brain goes, oh, this is funny like this. So it sends humor into your body, and then you literally laugh out loud as the end result. But that same thing is happening to us all the time. So literally all the time, your brain is processing what's going on around you, labeling it as something, even if it's not the truth. Like it could be something that's not 100% the same, but it's labeling it as an emotion, sending a chemical through your body, releasing this emotion, and then you have an outburst, whether that's laughter, happiness, crying, sad, screaming, whatever that is. And that's all happening automatically. All the time, until you are consciously aware of that and able to stop it so that you are in control of what your brain is doing and therefore releasing in your body. That is basically like the thing that I studied and how I know and what I teach and how I base all of the teachings and principles and everything that I do.
Well, I think you blew my mind a little bit. First of all, with the terribles 2 thing, I don't have children, not of my own choice, but I don't have children, and I didn't understand that correlation, and I think I might be a little bit nicer to them in the future. But the other thing that sorry, just brilliant. But the other thing that I really drew out of that is that your approach is a little bit different than what I'm used to hearing. What do you think some of the benefits are by attacking this more from a neurological standpoint, rather than some other coaches and other mentors out there who maybe take a more psychological approach?
Right. So, yeah, obviously there are some big differences. I did study psychology a lot in college as well, and that's really all in the behavior, right? Like that's what psychology is. And so this is, which there is basis of psychology in neuroscience. It's just a new understanding of the brain. And the reason is because they actually were only able to start studying the brain on live humans in the 90s. So psychology was formed, decades and decades ago, before the technology to study the brain existed. So all they could do was study human behavior and try to figure out why we were doing certain things. And then in the 90s, they began to be able to, with technology, hook the transmitters, call this stuff up to the brain. And now they're able to see what's happening inside the brain. They understand all the different sections of the brain. And so when someone has an emotion, they see what's lighting up. And so neuroscience has only existed for maybe 20 years. And so that's why you're seeing in the last 5 to 10 years, the coaching has expanded so much, because our understanding of the brain has expanded so much and what's really, really happening. And so my approach really goes back to the think about what you're thinking about. And so when you can become conscious about your thinking, you can stop this automatic pilot that exists in your body. The brain has all these things put on autopilot to reserve energy, and it's much needed. Like you don't have to think about talking and think about breathing, think about walking, right? Like we want all those things to be automated, because we would never get anything done if we had to think about all of those things. But if our thinking is not empowering, and if the results that we're seeing in our life are not what we want, then we have to stop the autopilot with the thinking and replace that negative thinking with new empowering ones, so that we can start to see better results in our life. And that's my approach, and that's the difference of neuroscience instead of just the psychology of human behavior.
Well, more history and things I didn't know, and that makes perfect sense. So I guess this is something that'll likely be leaking out into a lot more other areas of coaching as well, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. And now, because you have this amazing neuroscience background and you've kind of got this different approach, would you say that improves the chances of success or just changes them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's both. I think it obviously does improve chances for success, and people begin to realize that they're no longer a victim, that you're just not that way or just not this way. There are certain characteristics of our personality that do lead us to be certain ways and be different. That would be boring if we were all the same. But we do have the ability to control our circumstances and no longer be victims anymore, and the ability to change, and so I think it is a better approach in that sense, because for me, when I was walking through this process and understanding this, it was empowering to see that I could create change in my life, that I no longer had to just think every thought that came into my mind, that I could control those thoughts and bring them into alignment with what I really believe, because it wasn't in alignment at that point. So I think it is a much better approach for both aspects.
That's absolutely fantastic, and definitely very interesting. Now, what drove you to take that neuroscience stance? I mean, knowing that it's still such a relatively new direction. I mean, 1990, that's only what, like not even 30 years yet. Yikes. So knowing that it is so new, what drove you to take that neuroscience approach as opposed to the more tried and true generic psychological approach?
Right. So because I had such a traumatic past in my 20s when I was going through PTSD, I was researching alternative forms of therapy. I had tried everything, and I knew that cognitive therapy wasn't working because I wasn't getting any better. So I was just researching. I'm a researcher anyways. I love growth. That's like my human need. I love to grow and advance. And so I was just researching and researching. By this point, the internet was just starting to be a little more advanced in the very basic early stages of it. And so I was finding alternative therapy and started finding some of the first brain research that had even been out there. And so it was just really through my own journey of, realizing that this cognitive therapy wasn't working for me, it wasn't helping, and, trying to find my own, ways of solving my problems. And then, like I said, once I came to that defining moment and I, cried out to God and I began researching and connecting with people, I definitely was drawn to this coach that I found that was teaching, based on the science of the brain, because I had already been studying it for so many years with my own, traumatic past. And I saw the results, quickly. When I started to operate that way, I saw the results happen quickly in my life. And so I knew that there was something to this, that it was working.
Awesome. I thought, yeah, well, I mean, if it's working, it would probably be really obvious at that point. So that's fantastic. And I really do like that you've taken that different approach, because it gives us something to work with. I mean, during our conference so far, we've talked to people about all sorts of different ways to look at different things. And I think taking a neuroscience approach to financial health can actually be a really, really good way to structure something. So you'll have to keep me posted as to how that works. Now, what I want to do, because we're getting a little closer to wrapping up here, is I want to take some time for you to tell our viewing audience how they can find you, what you recommend for, especially for the new individuals coming out of, well, domestic violence situations, and just really guide them through where they can find you to get that amazing support.
Yeah, of course. So you can find me on my website, SnoweSaxman.com. And I do have a Facebook community group of women that's amazing. It's called Purpose Driven Working Women. You can find me there. And that's for entrepreneurs or not. It's just for a group of women who want to pursue their purpose with passion and want a sisterhood of women. I do tons of free resources in there. I have a free money mindset challenge. So if you're wanting to maybe move past some of those limiting beliefs or see, do I have some problems? I have tons of free resources like that, so you can find me there. And then I also have a free gift too as well. You can go to my website, snowsaxman.com, and then /hidden success blocks, no dashes, just hidden success blocks. And there is an exercise that will help you identify those hidden success blocks with the major areas of our life: personal relationships, finances, health, etc., and help you become into that awareness, get to that place of awareness and understand where you are, so you can start taking those first steps to change.
Awesome. Okay. I did also put that in. So anybody watching this YouTube now, later, whenever, I've added that link in there. So make sure you guys go and get your freebie, because I think this is fantastic information and it's helpful for all of us. So I suppose the next thing to really do here, Snow, did you have anything else you wanted to add or really tell our viewing audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah, so especially if you are watching and you're, currently in a situation you want to get out of, or you think, your mindset is, just not where it needs to be, or you feel like you're spiraling into depression, I really just want you to get some quiet time and start like just meditating and quieting your mind. Meditating is just quieting all the chatter, because I completely understand being in that place, and it seemed like, you know, I could never get clear to like think, what's my next step? What can I do? So I really want you to get out of your head and get into some quiet space so that you can think of some clear next steps, because their answers are there. There's plenty of resources for you, but you've got to get quiet in order to be able to really get clear about what you want. And so I just ask you to do that, because change really is possible.
Oh, fantastic and so true. And for all of the mothers out there, please don't panic about your 2 to 5 window like I'm now doing. Even though it is formative, I swear we can still correct it later.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, from our viewing audience as well, Snow, thank you very, very much. This has been a lot of great information. Rachel just loved it, and Rebecca says she just is all over that link. So I just really wanted to thank you for taking the time with us today to talk about our financial health and freedom and mastering that money mindset. It's just been absolutely fantastic. Now, for my little sign out, and remember, guys, this is all part of our Free to Fly online conference, sponsored, of course, by the Freebird Project. I am the Director of Finance and Marketing. Hi. And of course, we will still be doing this right until November 25th. So go online. It's thefreebirdproject.org. That way you can see all of our upcoming schedules and more amazing sessions like this. Snow's session will also be posted up there for replay. You can find us on YouTube. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and of course, the fashions, which I always do this. And I know there's probably been a few people that have seen this one, but it's one of my favorites. And it's this gorgeous little piece. It's so comfortable. I love the sleeves. Doesn't get into anything, I promise. But these are the kind of pieces that we sell at the freebirdprojectshop.com. And it's purchases of these amazing products that enable us to do more for our domestic abuse survivors and for people who are looking to become survivors. So please check it out, refer it to your friends, reach out to us. We are always here. We really just want to help generate that positive environment to move everybody forward. So again, thank you so much, Snow, for being here with us today. And you know what, guys, check her out and catch us later today. We've got another session, so catch us later today around 5:30 p.m. Mountain, and we're going to have a lot more fun. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.